Let's talk about Channel migrants. Back in the news. Why? Well, because of the latest arrivals in the last couple of days, we have now exceeded the 28,000 number who came through the whole of 2021. It is only mid-September. Now, admittedly, we've had some very, very, very good weather, which does aid the number of people able to make that crossing from northern France. But we've also seen many more people even attempting that crossing. So what is the government going to do about it? There is no doubt at all. Normal politics may have been put on hold, but as I've been saying throughout the show, realities of life don't stop. And no doubt this is going to be a serious, serious issue for Liz Truss, the new Prime Minister, and indeed the new Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. Let's talk to Stephen Wolfe. He's Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. Good morning to you, Stephen.
Good morning, Julie.
I can imagine a time in, 10 years' time where you and I are sitting here once again at 7:23 on a wet Wednesday morning, and I say to you, we've just exceeded the entire number of people, for the whole of 2031, and we've now got, 150,000 coming over in any one year. The numbers are creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, in some cases shooting up and shooting up. We know a huge number of those people are now from Albania. Last time I looked, that wasn't a war-torn nation. And yet we're constantly told there's a measure after measure to try and deal with this. And the problem's getting worse, not better. What's going on?
Well, what's going on is, at the moment, one of the key policies of the government, the Rwanda scheme, which is being held up in the High Courts. So last week, we had a whole week's hearings, 2 days with the government putting their case forward and 3 days with the opposition to that coming from trade unions and non-government organisations like Care for Calais. As a result of that, that decision is going to be pushed back now until sometime in October. So that effectively freezes the whole of that plan for this year.
I really don't know why courts and judges need to take quite so much time to do these things. I mean, even, when you think about, the Agatha Christie case, 3 months or something to come to a verdict. Why? They've heard both sides. Make a decision.
Well, they'll just go away and consider it themselves, saying that they've got court pressure that's been built up because of COVID, of which, of course, they are quite correct on that. But this has historically been one of those issues with courts where they take plenty of time. And this is really one of the strategies of the immigration industry. We only reason that we're in this position is because of the European Courts of Human Rights, our membership of it. And as a consequence of that, we've enabled one judge to be able to do an interim measure to prevent the first Rwanda flight from going off. And secondly, that feeds through the system where everybody else is able then to say, we're going to put claims in too.
Yeah, I mean, what's extraordinary is actually it is exactly 3 months since that flight was due to take off on the 14th of June. It is extraordinary how slow these cogs turn. And, of course, these people are still in the country. Who are we kidding? They're still going to be in the country in 3 months' time and, indeed, 3 years' time. And this is a concern. And, of course, costing huge sums of money. Talk us through the numbers again. I mean, the number of people who are currently here who've arrived in this method and how much they're costing us every single day.
Well, the issue is that we have over 28,600 came last year, and we've reached that figure already this year. Our research shows that for every initial asylum application that we receive, it costs us in the first year £40,000 per head. That's taxpayers' money. So if you think somebody's got to pay £40,000, how much do they actually have to earn? We believe that the government's estimates of costing around $2 billion a year is vastly underestimated. We're putting it in the region of 6 to 8 billion for this year alone. And that research we'll try and publish fully towards the end of September.
I mean, these numbers are absolutely staggering. I can imagine quite a lot of people spluttering through their cornflakes right now at those numbers. And again, people being kept in hotels. There are some areas, some towns around this country where they're just full of these migrant arrivals, and there doesn't really seem to be much effort at actually looking at any other way of dealing with this issue. There's a lot of talk about how Liz Truss, as a new Prime Minister, can reset relations with Emmanuel Macron. Of course, after a little contretemps following my hustings with her, where I asked Emmanuel Macron, friend or foe, and she paused and essentially, the jury was out. That created a few ructions. I apologise to everyone for that, but it's a reasonable question to ask, given the answer I got. But whether or not that she can reset relations with Emmanuel Macron, I'm thinking not. And since most of the problem is on the French side, we're not going to resolve this.
No, if you talk to those in the Home Office, as I do, they say that they have built up very strong relationships with the French authorities, and they've been actually helping push back some of the migrants, and that there would be a lot more if the French had not helped in the way they do. I point out the fact that we have paid over £250 million to them in helping them enforce this. So effectively, I believe that we're contributing vastly to their border force as well as paying for our own. Yeah. So they should be doing exactly that, and they're not doing enough. Whether Liz Truss can actually restate a position with Macron that enables him to turn over his own political concerns, which is never to allow as many people to stay in the country as he can, because you have Marine Le Pen and those on the left who are rising on the basis of their own problems through migrants. And we've got to look at what France does. France has substantial numbers too.
Yeah, it's a huge issue in France. I mean, Paris is sort of a tent city now. And again, this and the repercussions we've seen in Sweden, we're still waiting to count that final election result where it looks like a far-right party. It genuinely does have its history in the Nazis, going to be going into a conservative coalition on an anti-immigration line because of the huge, couple of 100,000 Syrian and other migrants coming in 2015, total lack of assimilation, and absolutely spiralling crime rate as a result. Again, politicians and the media can ignore these issues as long as they want, but people see the reality on the ground. Really good to talk to you, Stephen Wolfe, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity.